this conference will cover issues of media not just in Pakistan in regards to the threats that journalists face, but also in several countries in and around the region. How journalists and media are responding to these threats, how are they facing up to these challenges, what successes they've had in this fight, and how we can all learn from each other. We will get perspectives from people who've been facing these threats and responding to them and managing to overcome them from a number of countries. And I'd like to also extend a big thank you to all our delegates who've come from overseas and who will be sharing their experiences with us and making an attempt together with us to try and see how we can overcome these threats. We will also be launching as a case study the findings of an assessment mission to Balochistan, which within Pakistan has its own severe framework of risks that journalists are facing. There are horror stories there in regards to just going out to work, going to the newsroom, and from there going back home. This conference is supported by Europe-based international media support and with assistance from the governments of Denmark and Norway. This initiative was launched in Pakistan by Intermedia, a Pakistani media development organization that focuses on advocacy, research, and training on media issues. In conjunction with the Pakistan Federal Union of Journalists, which is the apex body representing working journalists in Pakistan, this project has 4 key objectives: improving capacity of Pakistani journalists to practice safe journalism, raising general awareness about risks facing journalists, improving ethics and reporting as a means of ensuring safety, and establishing and managing what's called the Pakistan Journalist Safety Fund, a mechanism to extend support, financial, legal, medical, and technical to journalists in distress.
In this country, the democracy in whatever form it is practicing, the media has a leading role. And somehow it can be claimed that in the restoration of the democracy, the media has more than 50% share. It has a long history of the struggle. But at the time of the crisis and the conflict, we expect the same role from media, that it will come forward and will try to be played is a critical and important role. Of course, as a professional media persons, it would not please us that the media play some role for the change. But in the South Asian perspective, and mainly in the Pakistani perspective, as I had mentioned, that media considers the agent of change, and this may be a challenge, that how the media would meet the standards and the challenges to meet the both responsibilities of the professionalism and as to be the agent of the change.
This conference is about the life of journalists, the life of media workers, and how we can, in the future, avoid that so many of them are being killed, losing their lives. and avoid that so many families are being left behind. But it's also about what kind of society we want to accept. Because if we accept killings and threats against journalists, we also accept a society where the media will not be able to live up to their role as an information and news provider, which will leave us as citizens without the access to information and to the news that we have a right to get. And we don't want to have this kind of society. And that's another reason for why we, during the next 2 days, will discuss this situation in detail, discuss this problem in detail, and exchange ideas and solutions on how we can respond. We all know there are no easy solutions, there are no quick fixes. This situation stems from a number of interlinked factors, which also vary from country to country and even from case to case.
I think, we have had a fairly detailed account by my friends to my right. They explained as to what is happening, the fear of the security forces, the fear of the militants allied with the security forces and protected by the security forces, the atmosphere of fear, environment of fear that is there, the condition of economic condition of journalists, which makes them vulnerable to threats as well as vulnerable to temptation. And on my left have been discussion on how to meet the situation. Now I think Balochistan is not a conflict zone. Conflict zone is a different way to handle. Balochistan is a very peculiar situation in which there is no law, and security forces, what they say is law. Both the security forces and the militants want the journalists to work for them, to be an extension of their work. The security forces want them to spy on others. What was Ayub Tarin's crime? That he had interviewed a known figure of Balochistan or another? That's all.
International Federation of Journalists and IMS supporting us, and especially IMS supporting for the safety of the journalists. And we have established a steering committee with the collaboration of IMS and other international organizations. We saved 5 to 6 journalists. They're facing threat from different organizations, drug mafia, ethnic groups, and religious fanatic groups, Taliban and agencies. We shifted them in Islamabad in safe homes.
On today's topic, a lot has already been said, and many of you know much more about it than I do. All I would say is that, of course, a security environment, a safe environment is incredibly important, enabling journalists to do their important job anywhere, at any time. And it is the task of at least 3 different stakeholders to make sure that the security and safety is in place. It is, of course, very much the task of the state institutions, security forces, to make sure that there is a safe environment.
We are very dependent on the media. Whenever we report back home about what's happening in Pakistan, the media is the source of information that we have. And we know that journalists take great risks in traveling to areas which is of importance to the rest of the world.
The whole environment, the whole issue, one way or the other. And therefore, there have been times that I found that the person wasn't so well prepared, how impact it would make, what would be the unintended consequences of his reporting. And mostly when it comes to reporting on serious issues like terrorism, extremism, and a violent act, and passing judgments, giving conclusions. This requires a lot of grooming, a lot of training, a lot of knowledge, and also a lot of anticipation. What all he's saying there, is he also aware of what all is obscuring his vision? He can only see what has happened in front, on which he is reporting. But there is a need to also know what is going behind and what can go wrong of his reporting, how badly his reporting can aggravate the issue. I think if you ask me honestly, sometimes I find it that there is a need to know more about the unintended consequences of the reporting.
Now, we got to have something putting on the positive side, and we have to take action like reduction in poverty, unemployment, and of course, conducive atmosphere on the borders, development on the borders. We have 3D policy announced by the President, Prime Minister, and we are taking action on that. We have started working on de-radicalization. The PFUJ and your other journalist unions, we can sit together and let's chalk out a roadmap or SOP so that, number one, we can provide safety to the journalists, and if something happens, how to deal with it immediately. And third, of course, we should also give them orientation and briefing as to how to deal and how to protect themselves. Today's world is an electronic world. I think everything is kept on record. So I think let's work a SOP in which we can work out a way forward where we are in a position as a state to provide you full security. I also gave permission to every channel 2 vehicles to be imported which are bomb-proof, a B2, B6 level or B7 level, so that they can be well protected.